Anger is a blade that turns against its own master. Those who let it swing freely are defeated before the fight begins. The samurai understood this truth not as philosophy but as survival. In the chaos of battle and the silence of solitude, they trained their minds to remain unmoved, clear as still water, sharp as tempered steel. Miyamoto Musashi taught that a disturbed spirit clouds perception, and a clouded perception invites death. What appears as calm was not weakness nor suppression but mastery. There existed a forbidden discipline, rarely spoken, never written plainly, that severed the roots of rage at their source. Through this inner technique, the samurai stood unshaken before insult, fear, and violence, acting without hesitation and without hatred. To lose one's temper was to surrender one's center, to keep it was to command the world within. Anger is the first wound a warrior gives himself. Before steel touches flesh, before feet shift on earth, before intent becomes motion, anger has already disrupted balance. It tightens the breath, hardens the shoulders, narrows the field of vision, and replaces clarity with heat. A man who burns cannot see the wind, and one who cannot see the wind will always strike too late. This is why the old warriors feared anger more than an armed enemy. An enemy stands before you, anger rises from within. One can be measured, the other deceives. I have seen many who believe their rage to be strength. They mistook noise for power and speed for victory. Such men rush forward, eager to end the moment, desperate to release what boils inside them. Their cuts are wide, their stance unstable, their timing broken. Even when they strike first, they do not strike true. The blade follows emotion instead of purpose, and where emotion leads, defeat follows closely. A calm opponent requires no courage to defeat them, only patience. Anger shortens distance in the mind. It makes the far seem near and the near disappear. When a man is angry, he fights not what is before him, but what he imagines. Insult becomes intention, movement becomes threat, shadow becomes blade. In this confusion, judgment dies. Technique loses its edge, strategy collapses, and the body moves without unity. The sword may be sharp, but the hand that holds it trembles. The samurai understood that every battle is first a battle of perception. If perception is distorted, action cannot be correct. Anger distorts more completely than fear, because it disguises itself as righteousness. Fear admits weakness, anger pretends authority. Thus anger is more dangerous. It convinces a man he is right when he is blind. It urges him to advance when he should wait, to strike when he should observe, to speak when silence would win. Many duels were decided not by skill, but by which man remained unprovoked. A warrior who loses his temper gives his opponent a gift. His rhythm becomes predictable. His breathing becomes loud. His eyes harden on a single point. An experienced fighter needs only to wait. He watches the shoulders rise, the jaw tighten, the weight shift too early. Then, when anger reaches its peak, the opening appears. Victory enters quietly while rage roars. There is no honor in such loss, because it is unnecessary. The blade was not dull. The body was not weak. Only the mind failed to remain empty. In this way, anger is not merely emotion, it is a collapse of discipline. Years of training are undone in a moment of indulgence. The samurai therefore treated anger as a breach of form, no different from a broken stance or careless grip. One corrected it immediately without argument. Some believe anger sharpens resolve. They say it gives courage to the timid and force to the hesitant. This is a misunderstanding. What anger gives quickly, it takes more quickly still. It burns fuel meant for endurance. True resolve is quiet and lasts beyond the first exchange. It does not shout. It does not rush. It waits until the exact moment and then acts without excess. Anger always seeks release. Resolve seeks completion. Consider water. When calm, it reflects the moon and flows around stone. When agitated, it splashes wildly, striking nothing with force. The samurai aimed to be water. In calmness, they saw clearly. In clarity, they acted correctly. Anger made them fire, bright, destructive, and short-lived. Fire consumes itself. To lose one's temper is to surrender initiative. The opponent no longer needs to act. He only needs to react. Anger announces intention before it is fulfilled. The eyes betray it, the breath reveals it, the muscles prepare too soon. A composed enemy reads these signs as one reads writing on a page. Thus anger speaks when silence would protect. The greatest insult, therefore, was not provocation from another, but provocation from within. A taunt heard is harmless, a taunt accepted is fatal. The samurai trained to hear without receiving, to see without grasping, to feel without following. This was not indifference, but control. They allowed emotion to arise and pass like clouds, never mistaking it for the sky. In life beyond the battlefield, the same law applied. Anger ruins judgment in council, fractures alliances, and invites unnecessary conflict. A lord who ruled in anger lost loyal men. A retainer who spoke in anger lost trust. The sword was merely the most honest mirror of this truth. It showed immediately what life would reveal slowly. Many seek to defeat anger by force, to crush it with will. This is another error. What is resisted grows rigid. What is watched dissolves. The samurai did not wrestle with anger. They denied it importance. They returned attention to posture, breath, and distance. When the body was aligned and the breath settled, anger found no place to stand. Without support, it fell. Thus, anger was not an enemy to be slain, but a signal to return to fundamentals. When temper rose, the warrior corrected his stance. When heat filled the chest, he lengthened the breath. When thoughts raced, he widened his gaze. In doing so, anger lost its command. It could shout, but no one obeyed. A man who cannot command himself cannot command a blade. A blade that moves without command is dangerous to its owner first. This is why mastery of temper preceded mastery of technique. Without it, skill was decoration. With it, even simple movements became decisive. Victory achieved in anger is unstable. It demands repetition, validation, and constant conflict. Victory achieved in calmness ends conflict. The samurai sought the latter. They knew that the highest form of winning was to remain untouched. By blade, by insult, by emotion. To stand firm while others burned was to already be ahead. In the end, anger is self-defeat because it replaces truth with urgency. It urges action before understanding, movement before alignment, expression before clarity. The samurai chose another way. They chose to be unmoved, not because they felt nothing, but because they understood everything. And understanding, when complete, leaves no room for rage. Stillness is not the absence of motion, nor is it the denial of feeling. Many confuse stillness with suppression and believe that to be calm one must force the mind into silence as a man might force a lid onto boiling water. This is a grave misunderstanding. What is forced will resist, and what resists will eventually break its container. The samurai did not chain their emotions, they released their grip on them. In this difference lies the secret. Suppression is born from fear. A man suppresses anger because he is afraid of its consequences, afraid of how it makes him appear, afraid of losing control. Stillness is born from understanding. A man who understands anger does not fear it. He observes it as one observes weather passing through the valley. Rain does not insult the mountain, nor does the mountain argue with the rain. It remains, and the rain passes. When anger arises, the untrained man tightens his jaw and hardens his will. He says, "I must not be angry." In doing so, he splits himself in two, one part that feels and another that condemns the feeling. This division weakens him. The body stiffens, the breath becomes shallow, and the mind grows crowded. Though his face may appear calm, his center shakes. In battle, this hidden tension betrays him. The samurai sought unity, not division. When anger appeared, they did not label it enemy or ally. They acknowledged it without granting authority. To see anger clearly is to deprive it of power. It thrives on identification. When a man says, "I am angry," anger gains a name and a home. When he says anger is present, it remains a visitor. Visitors do not command the house. Stillness is the state in which nothing is rejected and nothing is pursued. The mind rests where it is without leaning forward into desire or backward into avoidance. In this state, emotion has no hook. It arises, displays its shape, and dissolves. Suppression, by contrast, grips tightly. The tighter the grip, the more energy is given to what is held down. Thus, suppression feeds the very thing it seeks to destroy. In training, this difference was made clear early. When practicing the sword, tension in the arms dulled speed and accuracy. A relaxed grip allowed the blade to move as an extension of the body. The same principle governed the mind. A relaxed awareness allowed emotion to move through without obstruction. Tension trapped it. The samurai therefore trained the mind as they trained the hand, firm where needed, soft where required, never rigid. Stillness does not mean passivity, it is alert without strain. Like a cat before the leap, the body is quiet, yet every sense is open. In such a state, anger cannot dominate because attention is too wide to be consumed by a single impulse. Suppression narrows attention until all awareness is spent on restraint. Stillness widens awareness until restraint is unnecessary. Those who suppress anger believe they are strong, but their strength depends on constant effort. When effort fades, anger returns with greater force. Stillness requires no such effort. It is sustained by balance, not struggle. Once balance is established, it maintains itself. In the heat of conflict, stillness reveals itself through breath. The suppressed man breathes shallowly, guarding his chest as if defending a wound. The still man breathes fully, allowing air to enter and leave without interruption. Breath anchors the body in the present moment. Anger lives in imagined futures and remembered insults. Breath returns the warrior to what is real and immediate. The samurai learned that posture governs emotion as surely as emotion governs posture. A collapsed spine invites agitation, and a aligned spine supports calm. By correcting the body, they corrected the mind without confrontation. This was not avoidance but efficiency. One does not argue with a crooked blade, one straightens it. Stillness also preserves timing. Anger urges immediate action regardless of readiness. Suppression delays action unnaturally, creating hesitation. Stillness waits without impatience and moves without delay. This is the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction belongs to anger, response belongs to clarity. In stillness, the warrior sees openings without searching for them. Suppression blinds because it focuses inward on control. Stillness opens outward, allowing perception to flow freely. The opponent's intention becomes visible before it is fulfilled. The environment speaks. Distance, rhythm, and opportunity reveal themselves naturally. Many believe emotions must be conquered. This belief comes from misunderstanding their nature. Emotions are movements of energy, neither good nor bad. When resisted, they become obstacles. When observed, they become information. Anger, when seen clearly, reveals attachment to pride, outcome, or expectation. By seeing the attachment, the warrior loosens it. When attachment loosens, anger fades without command. Stillness is therefore an act of humility. It accepts what arises without claiming ownership. Suppression is an act of pride. It declares that nothing unwanted should exist within. Pride fractures the self. Humility integrates it. In daily life, the same discipline applied. Insults were heard but not stored. Injustice was addressed without hatred. Decisions were made without haste or resentment. This did not make the samurai weak, it made them reliable. Others trusted a man whose emotions did not govern his actions. Trust is a weapon sharper than steel. Stillness also conserves energy. Anger exhausts the body and clouds the spirit. Suppression drains strength through constant vigilance. Stillness wastes nothing. It allows energy to be used only when needed. In long campaigns and prolonged struggles, this conservation was decisive. To cultivate stillness, the samurai returned again and again to simplicity. They reduced unnecessary movement, unnecessary thought, unnecessary speech. What remained was essential. In the essential there is no room for excess emotion. The mind becomes like a clear path, easy to walk, difficult to lose. Stillness does not eliminate feeling, it refines it. Compassion becomes sharper, courage steadier, resolve quieter. Anger, once seen as fire, becomes warmth, useful, contained, and no longer destructive. This transformation cannot be forced. It occurs naturally when the mind stops fighting itself. Thus, stillness is not suppression. Suppression hides the storm beneath the surface. Stillness allows the storm to pass without damage. The samurai chose stillness because it required no deception, no tension, no false calm. It was honest, efficient, and enduring. A warrior who stands in stillness cannot be provoked. Because there is nothing to provoke. Words fall and do not stick. Threats pass and leave no trace. Even violence meets no resistance until the moment resistance is required, and then it is complete. This is why stillness was valued above silence, above obedience, above reputation. It was the ground from which all correct action arose. Without it, technique faltered. With it, even the simplest movement carried authority. In the end, suppression is a prison built inside the self. Stillness is an open field. One restricts movement, the other allows it. The samurai walked the open field. Their anger could arise, move, and disappear without leaving scars, and in that freedom true mastery was found. There is a point before action where the mind must be empty yet awake. Not empty like a void, but empty like a clear sky, able to contain clouds without being changed by them. From this state, action arises without hesitation and without force. This is the condition from which the samurai move, and it is here that the final separation between ordinary men and disciplined warriors appears. A cluttered mind moves late. A restless mind moves early. Both fail. The correct mind moves at the exact moment when movement is unavoidable and effortless. This moment cannot be calculated. It must be recognized. Recognition requires clarity, and clarity requires the absence of inner noise. Anger, fear, pride, and anticipation all speak loudly. When they speak, the correct moment is drowned out. The samurai trained to act without deliberation, but not without awareness. Thought was not eliminated, it was placed in its proper position. Planning occurred before the encounter. Analysis occurred after. During the moment itself, the mind rested in perception alone. What was seen was responded to directly, without translation into words or judgment. This is what allowed action to be both instant and correct. Anger destroys this condition by inserting itself between perception and response. Instead of seeing what is, the angry man sees what he feels. His blade answers emotion rather than reality. Even if his movement is fast, it is misaligned. Speed without accuracy is noise. Clear action requires that the body move as a single unit. Anger fragments this unity. The hands rush, the feet lag, the eyes fixate. In contrast, a calm mind allows the body to remain whole. When the center moves, everything moves. When it stops, everything stops. This unity creates power without strain. The samurai called this state readiness without tension. Muscles were neither slack nor rigid. Attention was wide, not narrow. Nothing was forced. From such readiness any action could emerge. Anger, by contrast, locks the body into a single intention. Once locked, adaptation is lost. The opponent needs only to change and the angry man is left striking at air. True action does not announce itself. It does not require permission from thought. When the moment arrives, movement happens. This is not instinct, but training refined to the point where conscious interference is unnecessary. Anger interferes by demanding expression. It insists on being acted out. In doing so, it reveals intention prematurely. The samurai understood distance not only as space between bodies, but as space between impulse and action. In that small distance lies freedom. Anger collapses this distance. Stillness preserves it. In preserving it, the warrior chooses when to act rather than being driven to act. To act without hesitation does not mean to act without restraint. Restraint is built into clarity. When the mind sees fully, unnecessary movement falls away. The blade travels the shortest path. The step is neither too long nor too short. There is no excess. Excess belongs to emotion. Precision belongs to understanding. Many believe that calmness would slow reaction. The opposite is true. Calmness removes internal delays. Anger creates urgency, but urgency is not speed. It is pressure. Pressure distorts movement. A calm action is faster because it meets no resistance inside. In combat, the clearest sign of mastery was not aggression but timing. The master did not chase openings. Openings arrived. This arrival was not luck. It was the result of patient clarity. When the opponent moved from emotion, he created imbalance. The calm warrior simply stepped into what was already broken. Action without anger also carries finality. An angry strike seeks satisfaction. It often continues even after success. A clear strike seeks resolution. It ends the conflict. This is why the samurai valued decisive action. Not because it was violent, but because it was complete. Completion leaves no residue. The same principle governs speech. Words spoken in anger multiply conflict. Words spoken from clarity end it. Silence itself can be action when guided by understanding. The samurai knew when not to act as surely as when to act. Anger knows only one direction. Clear action also preserves the self. Anger leaves regret, confusion, and exhaustion. Action from clarity leaves no trace. Once done, it is finished. The mind returns to stillness without replaying the event. This ability to return is a mark of true discipline. In long struggle, this mattered greatly. A warrior burdened by emotional residue weakens over time. One who acts cleanly remains light. Lightness allows endurance. Endurance decides outcomes more often than brilliance. The final lesson of clear action is responsibility. When one acts from anger, blame is easily assigned to insult, to circumstance, to the other. When one acts from clarity, responsibility is accepted fully. There is no excuse because there is no distortion. This acceptance strengthens the spirit. A man who owns his actions is difficult to defeat. The samurai did not seek calm for comfort. They sought it for effectiveness. They did not reject emotion. They refused to be commanded by it. In this refusal they gained freedom. Freedom allowed choice. Choice allowed precision. Precision allowed victory. When the mind is clear, action is simple. Simplicity is not lack of skill. It is the absence of waste. Every wasted thought, every wasted movement, every wasted emotion is removed. What remains is directness. Thus, anger was never useful in action. It promised power and delivered disorder. Clarity promised nothing and delivered everything. The samurai chose clarity, not as a virtue but as a necessity. In the end, the blade does not care how you feel. Distance does not respect intention. Time does not wait for anger to pass. Only the present moment exists. To meet it fully, the mind must be free of noise. From such freedom, action arises naturally, completely, and without regret. This is the final mastery, to act with full force and full restraint at the same time, without conflict within. Where there is no inner conflict, outer conflict cannot prevail. Power that depends on domination is unstable. It must constantly be proven, defended, and displayed. Power that arises from inner control requires no display. It is felt before it is seen, and once felt, it cannot be ignored. The samurai understood this difference deeply. They did not measure strength by how loudly a man spoke, how fiercely he struck, or how quickly he took offense. They measured it by how little he was moved. A man ruled by his emotions is easily ruled by others. Praise lifts him beyond balance. Insult drags him below it. Fear bends him. Anger drives him forward blindly. Such a man may appear powerful in moments, but he is predictable. Predictability is weakness. Inner control removes predictability because it removes compulsion. When nothing inside demands immediate expression, every action becomes a choice. The samurai sought mastery not over enemies first, but over themselves. This was not moral discipline, but strategic necessity. On the battlefield, an uncontrolled spirit was a liability. In leadership, it was ruinous. In life, it was exhausting. To govern oneself was to reduce friction everywhere. Where others struggled, the controlled man moved smoothly. Inner control does not mean the absence of desire or fear. It means these forces do not seize the reins. Desire may point a direction, fear may signal danger, but the decision remains with the center. The samurai trained the center relentlessly. They returned to it in breath, posture, and awareness until it became home. From home no emotion could exile them. Those without inner control mistake reaction for authenticity. They believe that expressing everything they feel is honesty. The samurai knew better. Expression without discernment is not honesty, it is leakage. True honesty lies in alignment between intention and action, not in emotional discharge. A man who speaks every impulse reveals his weakness freely. A man who chooses his moment reveals nothing. Control also protects clarity. When emotions dominate, perception bends to justify them. Anger seeks enemies. Pride seeks validation. Fear seeks escape. Inner control allows perception to remain neutral. Neutral perception sees reality as it is, not as the emotion demands. From this reality, correct action emerges. In conflict, inner control is immediately apparent. The controlled man does not rush to win. He allows the opponent to reveal himself. Those lacking control cannot wait. They must act, must assert, must prove. In doing so, they expose openings. The controlled man requires no such exposure. He stands, observes, and allows imbalance to form naturally. This patience is often mistaken for passivity. It is not. It is readiness without desperation. Like a bow fully drawn but not released, inner control stores power without wasting it. When release comes, it is complete. When it does not, nothing is lost. The samurai understood that force multiplied by timing exceeds force alone. Inner control governs timing. Without it, even great strength strikes at the wrong moment. With it, even modest strength becomes decisive. Thus, control does not weaken power, it refines it. In leadership, inner control inspires loyalty. Men follow those who are steady under pressure. A leader who reacts emotionally spreads instability. A leader who remains centered becomes an anchor. In chaos, anchors are rare. Those who provide them command without command. Control also prevents cruelty. Anger seeks to punish beyond necessity. Pride seeks to humiliate. Fear seeks to destroy threats completely. Inner control limits action to what is required and no more. This restraint preserves honor and reduces future conflict. Violence driven by emotion multiplies enemies. Action guided by control ends disputes. The greatest test of inner control is success. Defeat humbles naturally, victory inflames. Many who endure hardship with dignity lose themselves in triumph. The samurai guarded against this. They treated victory as another moment requiring discipline. Elation like anger distorts judgment. A man drunk on success grows careless. Carelessness invites downfall. Thus, control was practiced at all times, not only in crisis. Small irritations were treated as training. Minor delays, disrespect, discomfort, these were opportunities to observe the self. If one could not govern temper in trivial matters, one would fail in serious ones. Mastery revealed itself in the ordinary. Inner control also grants freedom from manipulation. Those who know your triggers can move you like a piece on a board. Remove the triggers and manipulation fails. The samurai were difficult to provoke because they did not attach their identity to reaction. Without attachment, insults found no target. This freedom extended inward. Regret, resentment, and anticipation lost their grip. The controlled mind did not replay the past endlessly or rehearse the future anxiously. It stayed near the present. Nearness to the present increases effectiveness. Action taken now is stronger than thought delayed by emotion. Many seek control by hardening themselves. They suppress feeling, build walls, and call it discipline. This is brittle control. When pressure exceeds tolerance, it shatters. The samurai sought flexible control. Like bamboo, it bent without breaking. Flexibility allowed adaptation. Adaptation ensured survival. Inner control also clarified purpose. When emotions dominate, purpose shifts with mood. When control is established, purpose remains stable. Decisions align over time. Such alignment creates momentum. Momentum, sustained over years, builds quiet authority. True power, therefore, was invisible. It did not announce itself with threats or displays. It was recognized through consistency. The controlled man was the same in ease and difficulty, praise and blame. This sameness built trust. Trust built influence. Influence achieved outcomes without conflict. In the end, inner control is self-respect made active. It declares that one's actions will not be dictated by passing states. It affirms sovereignty over the self. A man who possesses this sovereignty cannot be enslaved by circumstance. The samurai did not chase power, they removed weakness. Anger was weakness, impulsiveness was weakness, ego was weakness. As weakness fell away, power remained naturally. It did not need cultivation, it was revealed. Thus, the highest strength was quiet. It did not need to convince. It did not need to threaten. It simply endured and acted when required. Where such a man stood, conflict either resolved itself or was ended swiftly. This is the final measure. The one who governs himself governs his world. The one who cannot govern himself is governed by it. The samurai chose the harder path first so that every other path became easier. Fate is not an external force that descends upon a man without warning. It is shaped quietly, moment by moment, through the choices he makes when no one is watching, and when nothing dramatic appears to be at stake. The samurai understood this. They did not wait for destiny to reveal itself in battle or crisis. They forged it daily through discipline of mind and action. To master one's temper was not merely to avoid mistakes. It was to take command of the direction one's life would follow. Temper is the gate through which circumstance enters the self. When the gate stands open, anything may rush in, insult, fear, desire, frustration, and seize control. When the gate is guarded, only what is useful is allowed passage. The samurai were vigilant gatekeepers. They knew that fate favors those who choose deliberately rather than those who react instinctively. Every outburst of uncontrolled emotion leaves a mark. It may seem small, but marks accumulate. A harsh word spoken in anger alters relationships. A rash decision made in pride shifts alliances. A moment of fear avoided reshapes character. Over time, these marks harden into paths, and paths become destiny. The samurai saw this long before others did. They treated each emotional response as a strategic decision with future consequences. To master temper is to extend vision beyond the present moment. Anger narrows time until only now exists. Mastery widens time until the future is felt in the present. When a man senses where a path leads, he walks differently. He speaks differently. He restrains himself not out of fear, but out of foresight. The warrior who cannot govern his temper is always at the mercy of circumstance. He blames fate when things go poorly, yet he surrenders control at every turn. The samurai rejected this helplessness. They believed that while one cannot choose all events, one can choose one's response to them. In that choice lies power greater than chance. This mastery required constant awareness. Temper often disguises itself as justice, urgency, or passion. The samurai questioned these disguises. Before acting, they asked not with words but with attention. Is this action necessary, or is it merely emotional release? Does it serve the path, or does it satisfy the moment? Such questioning became instinct through repetition. Mastery of temper also created alignment between values and behavior. Many know what they believe yet act against it under emotional pressure. This fracture weakens the spirit. The samurai sought wholeness. When belief and action matched, inner conflict dissolved. Without inner conflict, decisions became lighter. Light decisions travel far. Fate is often thought of as dramatic turning points. Victory, defeat, life, death. But the samurai understood that the great turns are prepared by countless small ones. A man who yields to anger in small matters will yield in great ones. A man who practices restraint in small matters will find it available when life demands it most. This is why temper was trained not only in battle, but in daily routine. How one responds to delay, discomfort, disrespect, and fatigue reveals more about destiny than how one responds to danger. Danger clarifies, routine erodes. Mastery forged in routine does not fail in crisis. Those who mastered temper were not without emotion. They felt deeply. But feeling did not dictate direction. Emotion informed but did not command. This distinction allowed them to experience life fully without being consumed by it. Depth without drowning is the mark of wisdom. By mastering temper, the samurai also mastered fear of loss. Anger often arises from attachment to reputation, outcome, control. When attachment loosens, anger loses its fuel. The samurai accepted impermanence. They acted fully yet released outcomes. This release did not weaken resolve, it purified it. A man who releases outcome cannot be manipulated by threat or promise. His fate becomes self-directed. Others may influence circumstances, but not his core. Such a man moves through the world with quiet authority. Events shape around him rather than breaking him. Temper also affects how others respond. Those ruled by emotion invite resistance. Those ruled by clarity invite cooperation or caution. Many conflicts escalate not because they are necessary, but because temper demands acknowledgement. Mastery prevents unnecessary escalation. What does not escalate often resolves itself. Over a lifetime, this creates a pattern. Opportunities arise more frequently for the disciplined. Trust accumulates. Enemies diminish. Even when misfortune strikes, recovery is faster. Fate appears kinder, but in truth, it is simply met with skill. The samurai did not romanticize destiny. They treated it as a path shaped by consistent behavior. Walk straight long enough and the path straightens. Deviate often, and the path becomes tangled. Mastery of temper keeps the path clear. This mastery also prepares one for the final encounter with fate, death. A man enslaved by temper fears death intensely, because he has not lived deliberately. A man who has chosen his actions carefully meets death without panic. He recognizes it as the final event, not the final injustice. Thus, mastering temper was ultimately an act of courage. It required facing oneself without disguise. It demanded patience when expression would be easier, silence when speech would be gratifying, restraint when release would be tempting. But the reward was freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from being driven. Freedom to act according to principle rather than impulse. This freedom is what the samurai called mastery, not of others, but of fate itself. In the end, fate does not resist those who are clear. It yields to them, not because they are stronger than the world, but because they are no longer fighting themselves. Where there is no inner struggle, the path unfolds naturally. This is why the samurai placed temper at the center of discipline. To master it was to master time, consequence, and direction. The blade could end a life in a moment. Temper could shape an entire existence. They chose wisely which to sharpen first. There is a discipline beyond technique, beyond calmness, beyond even self-control. It is the discipline of seeing the self clearly without illusion. Few reach it because it offers no comfort and no praise. This is why it remained hidden, spoken of only indirectly, tested through silence rather than instruction. The samurai who approached this discipline did not seek advantage, they sought truth. And truth, when seen fully, dissolves the roots of anger completely. Most men believe anger comes from the world, from insult, injustice, betrayal, or loss. This belief is convenient because it places responsibility outside the self. The disciplined warrior discovered otherwise. Anger does not arise from events, it arises from resistance to events. Where there is no resistance, anger finds no ground. This realization is not philosophical, it is experiential. It comes only through long observation of the mind in motion. The forbidden technique was not a method to destroy anger directly. Any attempt to destroy something gives it importance. Instead, the technique removed the conditions that allowed anger to exist. Like extinguishing a fire by removing oxygen, not by striking the flame. When the conditions vanished, anger could not remain, no matter how strong it once seemed. The first condition was identity. Anger feeds on the idea of a fixed self that must be defended. Reputation, pride, role, status. These form a shell around the ego. When that shell is threatened, anger rises to protect it. The samurai learned to wear identity lightly. Rank was honored but not clung to. Skill was cultivated. When identity loosened, provocation lost its target. The second condition was expectation. Anger is born when reality refuses to obey expectation. This should not have happened. He should not have spoken. I should not have lost. These thoughts ignite heat. The disciplined warrior trained to expect nothing specific, yet prepare for everything. Preparation without expectation creates resilience. When nothing is demanded of reality, nothing can offend it. The third condition was attachment to outcome. Many act not to do what is correct, but to secure a desired result. When that result is threatened, anger surges. The samurai separated action from outcome. They focused on correctness of action alone. Once action was complete, the result was accepted fully. This acceptance was not resignation, it was completion. To cultivate this state, the warrior observed the moment anger first stirred. Not when it exploded, but when it whispered, a tightening in the chest, a slight acceleration of breath, a story forming in the mind. At this early stage, anger is fragile. Awareness alone is enough to dissolve it. Ignored, it grows teeth. This observation required brutal honesty. The warrior did not justify anger by calling it righteousness. He did not excuse it as passion. He saw it naked, stripped of story. What remained was sensation and impulse. Sensation passes, impulse fades. Only identification keeps them alive. The forbidden technique demanded that one remain with discomfort without reaction. This was the hardest training, to feel insult without defending, to feel frustration without correcting, to feel loss without blaming, not indefinitely, but long enough for clarity to return. Most fail here. Reaction feels like relief, stillness feels like exposure, but exposure is where freedom lives. As this discipline deepened, anger began to lose its urgency. It still arose, but it no longer demanded expression. Like a child who shouts to be heard, anger quiets when it realizes no command will be obeyed. Eventually, it stops shouting altogether. The samurai who reached this stage were often mistaken for cold or detached. In truth, they were deeply present. Their emotions were refined, not dulled. Compassion became precise. Courage became steady. Even joy became quieter but more enduring. In combat, this discipline produced something unsettling. The warrior no longer needed emotional fuel. He moved without hatred and without fear. His actions were clean. Opponents sensed this and felt unease. Rage could be met. Fear could be exploited. But clarity offered no handle. In life, the same effect appeared. Arguments failed to escalate. Manipulation failed to function. Praise failed to intoxicate. Blame failed to wound. The warrior became difficult terrain. Not hostile, simply ungraspable. This was the true reason the technique was rarely taught. Without maturity, it could make a man arrogant or detached from responsibility. Without ethics, it could become cruelty master's calm. Therefore it was revealed only after long discipline in humility and service. The final stage of this mastery was the disappearance of the need to control anger at all. Control implies opposition. Here opposition ended. Anger was no longer an enemy, because the self at attack no longer demanded defense. When there is nothing to protect, nothing needs to be destroyed. This state did not make the samurai passive. On the contrary, action became more decisive. Without emotional hesitation or internal argument, action occurred at the exact moment required, not sooner, not later. Precision replaced effort. Many believe this level of mastery removes humanity. It does the opposite. It removes distortion. Humanity without distortion is formidable. It feels fully and acts cleanly. It suffers without bitterness and succeeds without arrogance. The samurai did not claim enlightenment. They claimed responsibility. Responsibility for perception. Responsibility for action. Responsibility for the state of their own mind. In accepting this responsibility completely, they stepped beyond anger. Thus, the forbidden technique was never written as a formula. It could not be. It was a way of seeing. Once seen, it could not be unseen. Once lived, it required no maintenance. This is the final lesson. Anger is not conquered by force, reason, or suppression. It ends when the illusion that feeds it ends. The illusion of a self under attack. The illusion of a world that must obey. The illusion of control over outcomes. When these illusions fall, what remains is clarity. And from clarity, all correct action flows naturally. This was the last mastery of the samurai. Not how to strike without anger, but how to live without needing it at all.